Good afternoon, friends. It is good to be with you. We are joined today by some of our representatives from Pearson. Tyler Hicks is here. He is our program manager with the Utah Aspire Plus project. And Michael Reynolds is also here along with Lori Weldon Peters. Michael will actually be doing our training this afternoon that is specific for the technical side of the administration of the Utah Aspire Plus assessment and administration. So I'm going to go ahead and turn the remaining time over to him for his presentation, and we are super appreciative that he was willing to do this for us. Thank you.
Thank you. Like she said, my name is Michael Reynolds. I'm with our Field Services Engineering team. So I do these presentations for states all over the U.S. And today's focus is going to be the technical delivery side. So we're talking about student devices, network preparation, and the TestNav application. That will be the main focus for questions on the test setup, enrolling, and proctors. All that information, if you have questions on that, or if you have any issues going forward, you'll be able to contact our support team. And then for any technical issues at the end of this presentation, I'll let you know how to get in contact with my team so we can help you directly. So first things first, all the information I'm sharing today is going to be located on our support site, support.assessment.pearson.com. The TestNav side of things is going to be what's important to you. There we have detailed documentation on network requirements, operating systems, device requirements, and anything you'd want to know. So don't feel like you need to write down everything you see in this PowerPoint. It's all done in more detail at this support site. Starting off, we're going to talk about system requirements, and starting with our desktop partners, Windows, Mac OS, and Linux. We support, TestNav is supported on Windows 10 and 11, and Mac OS X 13, 14, and 15. We also support Linux if you have any devices that use that. You can see details on that on our support site. For our desktop clients, it's important to be aware of aging devices. We do state that we recommend 4 gigabytes of RAM, but aging Windows devices might not function very well with that little amount of RAM. So if your devices take several seconds or even a couple minutes to boot up and launch software, that can cause issues during testing. So please be aware of that. And we have our detailed requirements on our support site. The main things you're going to want to be looking out for are those RAM requirements and the minimum screen resolutions. And for all of our desktop partners, operating systems require read and write access to the local home directory. For Windows, that's going to be program files and app data, and it'll be the home folder on Mac OS. If you are locking down those directories, perhaps to prevent students from launching executables, we have some workarounds. Primarily for Windows, this is a concern. If you're locking down program files or app data, you can deploy TestNav as an app from the Windows Store. That will get around that read-write requirement that we have. But the reason we have that requirement is we're writing runtime logs, updates for the clients built into TestNav, all run out of there. So students on their accounts will need read-write access. For Chromebooks, we support currently stable channels 124 and greater and long-term support 120 and greater. Note there's no ceiling on this, so as Chrome is releasing stable 4 releases, they will be supported going forward. And it's important to note that beta channels and experimental developer channels are not included in those releases. They are quite often not functional with TestNav. They do weird things. Sometimes they work, many times they don't. So it's not a good way to get a preview of a certain Chrome builds to see if it's going to work. You need to wait for the stable channels to see if it's functional with TestNav specifically. Also important on that, make sure you're disabling automatic updates during the testing window. The last thing we want is a student to open a Chromebook and find it's doing an operating system update when they need to be signing into a test, or even worse, if you've enabled those beta channels, it's tried to update to one of those. So in the admin console, locking down automatic updates is suggested. Important note for your aging Chromebooks, we do not block older versions of Chrome OS. If you cannot get onto this long-term support, we're not going to block your Chromebook from signing into the test. But Chromebooks that are way out of date, very old, there could be issues in compatibility, slow performance, things like that may be a problem. The best thing you could do is run app check and double check to the best of your ability to make sure that those Chromebooks are working. But if you are a couple versions out of date, we are not going to have any hard block on them. In the majority of cases in the history of test nav and test delivery, they've worked just fine. But it is best practice to be on our 124 and greater. And for secure testing, unmanaged Chromebooks are not supported. We have to be able to launch TestNav in kiosk mode to sign into a secure test. This allows us to lock down the window and prevent any of the applications from running. So if you have Chromebooks that are not enrolled in your admin console, they will not be able to be used for secure testing. For iPads, we're supporting iOS 16 and 17.3 and greater. Notice this is not a range of any version of 16 through 17. Apple had some issues with the take a test mode with 17.1 and 2. And the fix for those issues was in 17.3 that was released very quickly. But if you have any iPads that are on 17.1 or 2, make sure they are updated to a newer version of 17.3 or greater for testing. And any version of 16 will work. To install over iPads, you can download the TestNav app and deploy it from the Apple Store or through any of your MDM management. Note that TestNav uses the automatic assessment mode. And when you launch TestNav for the first time on an iPad, there'll be a series of confirmations to confirm self-lock and microphone permissions, things like that when a student signs into a test. To install TestNav for all of these different operating systems on our support site, we have details on how to set up on Linux, Mac, Windows, detailed guides on all of those, as well as links to download TestNav if you need a deployable installer. If you're installing TestNav for the first time, I encourage you to visit our support site and visit one of these guide walkthroughs that will take you through the entire process. For desktop, we have our MSI installer. We also have a link to the Microsoft Store. You can deploy it either way. TestNav will function generally the same. The main consideration is where TestNav is being installed. The Windows Store will install it as a Windows Store app, whereas the MSI deployed by MDM and will install and program files and app data like a traditional piece of software. And for Mac, we have our downloads and downloads for Linux as well here. For Chromebooks, TestNav is deployed via the admin console. So you'll need to add the app within the admin console and ensure that you're communicating to all of your students and your test administrators that TestNav is going to be launched in kiosk mode. These students are not signing into their Chromebooks like they normally do. It's a leading call driver of on test day of classrooms calling in saying they can't find the TestNav app. It's disappeared. It's because students, just like they're used to, open their Chromebook and sign in, and they cannot access TestNav that way. They need to sign out of the Chromebook and launch it from kiosk mode. So we're all aware of that, but make sure you're reminding all of your administrators that this is the correct process. If TestNav is deployed, the Android version, we do have an Android version. It does not support the secure testing that's required for this testing administration. So if you try to sign into TestNav within a browser or within the Android version from the user space, you will get errors. And the solution is to sign out of the Chromebook and launch TestNav in kiosk mode. For iOS, it's simply deployed from the App Store. And you can deploy it from MDM as well. And ensure that single app mode is not configured. That is not compatible with automatic assessment mode, and TestNav will not be able to launch correctly. And you can create some frustrating issues where your device is locked into a TestNav and you got to hard reset it. So make sure we're not using single app mode. So some operating system best practices. These are mainly going to be relevant to our desktop clients. For Windows, there's a few settings that need to be changed to allow for secure testing. We need to disable Cortana, Cloud Clipboard History, Xbox game bar, and text suggestions. These are all settings within Windows, and these are baked into the operating system, things that TestNav cannot suppress and override. So the solution for secure test is to disable them within the operating system. The game bar, for example, can provide screen recording, which is something we definitely do not want. We don't want any screen captures of test content. And the Cloud Clipboard history would allow students to retain sections of text linked to a Microsoft account or other account, and we need to disable that as well. Similarly, on Mac, we need to disable Siri and keyboard dictation for the same reasons. And some general guidelines. We want to stop, close, prevent any other unnecessary processes and programs from running during testing. TestNav will try to lock down the device as best it can, but some things, particularly things that are built into Windows, TestNav cannot completely suppress. TestNav, at the end of the day, is simply a secure browser. It's a Chromium browser that's running a custom wrapper to take full screen control over the devices, but it cannot suppress all Windows processes, or the operating system may crash. So when another application decides to take control of the device, TestNav will stop the test and present an error. The most common version of this is a lost focused error 3005. This can occur from an antivirus message causing pop-ups, a Teams message, email notifications. If your devices have trackpads that can engage in multi-point touch for shortcuts such as Alt-Tab and choosing other desktops, all of those can cause these errors. And so it's important to close as many of those programs as possible, such as Teams or email and any other messaging device. And for things like antivirus, which we can't close and eliminate, we can go into those settings and suppress pop-up notifications as much as possible to prevent these interruptions during testing. And if these interruptions occur, it is as simple as signing the student back into the secure test, but it does for a moment stop them from taking the test. And then a final note, if you're using any deep freeze applications, please exempt the Pearson directories from those features. We're installing updates on launch, and as well for all of our clients, particularly relevant to assistive technologies built into TestNav. Deep freeze can interfere with those and cause issues. All right, once we've deployed TestNav to our student devices, the first thing we're going to want to do is run app check. App check is built into TestNav, and it is designed to check that we're running the correct version of TestNav, that it's been updated correctly, that your operating system is supported, and that we can take full screen control of the device. So to access TestNav or app check within TestNav, simply launch the application, and there's a drop-down menu in the top right, and you'll see the option for app check. After running app check, you'll get some detailed messages. If everything is good, it'll tell you kiosk mode is passed. That means we didn't detect any issues with the versions of TestNav or the operating system. And connectivity to TestNav is passed. So we have a basic open access to the internet. If things failed, it'll give you some detailed reasons why. Also within app check, you'll see an option for running a network check. This is basically a speed test built into TestNav. So that if this is helpful to you, to perhaps if you have a Chromebook in kiosk mode and you want to see what the Chromebook can pull in terms of speed, you can run the app check while TestNav is running. One thing it's not the best at is determining overall load, since we are limited by the network card on the device. So it'll have an option to enter the number of computers. That'll basically give you an estimate of the speeds that you're deploying to devices and see if you are good to go for testing. If you enter very high numbers in here, we are limited by the network card on that particular device. So if you're testing 1,000 students at your school, you open up a Chromebook, put in 1,000 in a network check, you're going to get all kinds of warnings that your internet isn't fast enough. That's probably not the case. It's just that Chromebook isn't pulling enough speeds simultaneous tests. So if you're using network check, use it to check a single device. Maybe walk it to the corner of a hotspot that you think might have a weak connection. It's a great way to use this, but don't use it to stress test your network. You have much better tools to evaluate your speeds at each of your access points. All right, one moment. There we go. All right, so that was device preparation and test nav deployment. Now we're going to be talking about our network configurations. Of all the slides that I'm going over today, this is going to be the most important one. And like I mentioned earlier, you don't need to bother writing all these down. This link down here at the bottom will take you to our support site with all of these URLs. And we always want to be referencing the support site when we are updating our networks and content filters with these URLs. PowerPoints can have typos. And so we want to be sure that we're always accessing from the support site. It's also will always be the most up-to-date source. So our content filters and firewalls at all our schools will need to be updated to allow these URLs over your network. And by allow, I mean explicitly allow. There's no middleman and no redirects, nothing sniffing or scanning or taking a peek. We have full uninterrupted communication from our servers, which are hosted by AWS, to the student device. All of our content is encrypted by our own encryption. If anything tries to look inside, it's going to break that encryption. And if anything is acting as a proxy or a redirect, a test nav will assume that there's a security issue and stop the test if that proxy doesn't corrupt the content in the first place by breaking our headers. These URLs are separated into three categories. First category is going to be our test delivery URLs. These are testnav.com and pearsonTestContent.com. Note that these have ports associated with them, port 80 and port 443. The vast majority of testing traffic is going to be communicated over these two URLs. And you'll see a great variety of file types going over these URLs as well. We'll have JSON files, media files, scalable vector files, basically the full laundry list of everything that can be seen to contain executables. So they are primed to be picked up and scanned by your network security if they are not explicitly allowed. The second category is going to be our certificate authority URLs. This is how we're signing all of our content. These URLs are particularly prone to causing issues with corrupted content due to advanced features on your content filter and firewalls. If you're running things like SSL inspection or decryption, that can break our certificates by intercepting them and trying to verify them. That will cause a lot of errors. If many of the common providers for content filter and firewall may have a separate allow list for their advanced features. So SSL inspection may run its own allow list, and it may be operating without respect for things that you've explicitly allowed over your network. So in some cases, the only solution, if this has been a common problem causing corrupted test content and errors during testing, is to disable some of those advanced features. But the best case scenario is finding out a way within those settings to allow these certificate authorities URLs to be exempt from SSL inspection. And the last category are tool and assistive technology URLs. These are all mostly third-party additions to TestNav, typically associated around media files for text-to-speech, speech-to-text, and other accommodations. Don't try to pick and choose which schools might need these assistive technologies. Just assume that they're part of the greater list, and some student somewhere with your district is going to eventually need one of these. And do note that the majority of the content going over these URLs is going to be media files. So if you have advanced media file filtering, that can cause issues here. All right, content filter best practices. I already discussed SSL inspection. Do note that there's a lot more fancy features that generally each content filter has, and more get added every year. So even if you've configured your firewall and you think you're good to go, I encourage you to double check ahead of the testing administration. Make sure that your content filters and firewalls, that in all of those configuration menus, that there aren't any new shiny new features for you to check out, new drop-down menus, new checkboxes and radio buttons to configure. Typically those features are updated without any announcement or fanfare. Um, and they can cause issues during testing. Media file filtering, gateway antivirus, SSL inspection are going to be kind of the number one culprits. So double check if there's any of those new features that have been added, any new bells and whistles that either need to be turned off or configured or adjusted to make sure they're not interrupting our content. And a final note, if you're using reverse DNS lookup, note that that can cause issues during testing if you're maintaining a block list. We're hosted by Amazon, and our IP addresses generally won't change week over week, but they definitely will over the course of a few months. So if you, for example, blocked a gaming or some sports gambling website over the summer on your networks, and they're an Amazon customer, it's possible months or a year later that some of those IP addresses and DNS addresses that they were using could now be assigned to us. So be aware of that if you are still maintaining a block list based on DNS lookups. Okay. Ahead of testing, if there are any major issues, particularly with our operating system partners, we'll post a technical bulletin on our support site. The most recent example of this was with Apple when iPad version 17 wasn't working with TestNav. They released an update. I think it was within 10 days. I don't think there were any major testing disruptions, but there was a little bit of panic of 17 doesn't work. iPads have been updated. Is everything going to be okay for testing? We had details of what we were doing in the meantime and workarounds. And then the technical bulletin was updated when 17.3 was released. So if you hear anything similar happening, any news about Chrome OS and you're concerned about if it affects testing, if it has, we're usually the first ones to hear about it, and we will very quickly, usually within a day or two, have a technical bulletin posted. And in here, we'll have basically a full rundown of everything of the issue, and most importantly for you, workarounds if there is no immediate fix for that issue. So keep an eye out for that. If you hear anything that concerns you, you can check our technical bulletins. We're in the same circles. We hear feedback from districts all around the U.S. And so when we have those concerns, we will post them here. Similarly, if you find any major issues with operating systems or the deployment of TestNav that you think are could be far-reaching, we would love to hear from you. I'll tell you in a moment how to get in contact with my team. But in addition to helping you work through any of those issues who come up, we're happy to hear feedback from the field because if anything's major enough, a technical bulletins like this will help everyone. And finally, how to get in contact with my team. So we have two ways to contact support. We have our support line, which will get you to our phone agents. This is for any issues, enrolling students, if you're having an issue with the test configurations, things like that, general questions, use the phone support. For higher level support, particularly regarding preparing for testing, we have our office hours set up. This takes you directly to my team at Field Services. This office hours is operated by me, other technical managers and engineers. And we'll meet directly on a Teams call. It can be a phone call as well if you prefer. And we can talk through any technical issues you have preparing for testing. So deploying TestNav over your devices, configuring your firewalls. If you're having an issue with your ISP or if you're getting a new network security provider and you're not sure how it will interact with testing, you can set up a three-way call here with any of your suppliers and us, and we'll be happy to participate. We do that all the time. So as you're preparing for testing, particularly for just those technical concerns, anything administrative or enrolling students, use the normal support channels. But for technical concerns, reach out in office hours, schedule a meeting. You can typically do so as early as if you're looking at office hours in the morning. You can often set up a meeting for straight in the afternoon. So please use this resource as you're preparing. And then do know that this won't be an immediate meeting. So if you have any emergent issues as testing begins and you have live students, don't try to set up an office hours. It might be a day or two before I can reach out to you. And we don't want any interruptions to live students. So with that, I'm done with the presentation. If anyone has any questions, you can go ahead and throw those in chat. and I can answer them. And then if there's anything, major issues you're having or any confusions that are particular to your district, you don't want to ask here, please set up an office hours call with my team. We would love to hear from you, and we're here to help. Our office hours are, that link. We'll get these slides shared out to you. The link to office hours will have all of our hours. So it links directly to my team's Outlook calendar. So you can find a 30-minute time slot that we're available and that works for you. And you can make a meeting and that'll get on both of our calendars and we can reach out and discuss any problems you're having. But typically 9 to 5 is the window we support.
A PDF of the slides and she'll be able to add them to the Midas course. We'll try again. Is it better or still bad? Okay. I just sent Emily a PDF of the slide deck that was used today, and she will be able to add that to the Midas course, and so you can download it from there.
Yeah, I was just going to kind of add on to what Michael was saying about if you have an emerging issue during live testing about how scheduling an office hours isn't going to be the best bet. And that by calling in on the phone line, you can definitely get escalated resources that'll work its way up. If it's a technical issue, to my team, level 2 support. But just be aware if it's a live testing scenario, use that number. Because ideally we want to get students tested while they're still in the seats. So we want to get you in touch with someone immediately. All right, thank you.
Yeah, I just threw the link into the chat for office hours. It'll also be in the PowerPoint. Joseph, they're asking for that support line. Do you happen to have that phone number handy?
Yeah, let me pull that up.
Okay, yeah, Joe will go ahead and throw that number in chat. And keep that number safe. If you have any issues during testing, that phone number is the first thing you're going to want to call. And particularly you're having technical issues, there's a few pieces of information you'll want to have. First things first, identify yourself as a technical role. Say, I'm an IT director. Explain your technical issue. Best thing you can do is have an error code. So if you're having network errors and you're getting a 1009 network error, for example, that means we can't connect to the internet and you think it's something wrong with your firewall or content filter, have that error code handy and explain that you have live students. So those 3 key pieces of information of your technical role, the error code or detailed description, and that you have live students. Those pieces of information will allow our phone agents to open a case for you. And for live students, we have fast track escalation procedures, particularly for technical errors. So they'll get you up to our higher levels of support so they can help you out. Additionally, getting any of those error codes can be greatly helpful for a fast resolution. There's dozens of different kind of flavors of network errors. But just based on that specific code, they'll all say something along the lines of can't download content, can't upload content, can't connect to the internet. But we have detailed guide documentation. If you were to give me one of those codes, I can often just, from experience, know where we need to start troubleshooting, whether it might be a problem with losing a connection to your access point, or if it's a firewall issue or a local device issue, that can really help narrow it down. So please keep an eye out for those error codes if any occur. They're just 4 digits. Remember those when you call, and it can help if anything goes wrong. Any other questions? All right, I'm not seeing any other questions. That's all the content I had prepared for you today. If anything does pop up, don't hesitate to give us a call or set up an office hours. We're here to help.
Thank you so much, Michael.
You're very welcome.
For the rest of our users who are still on the call, a reminder that our test administration training is going to be held next week on the 29th, and so we look forward to seeing you there as well. This training was recorded, and we will get it posted on our YouTube channel for your reference within the next few coming days, and then we can get that link sent out to you. Thank you so much for attending, and thank you to Michael and the rest of our Pearson team for their support. We really appreciate it.